My sister laughed when she saw me alone in court. Until the bailiff opened the folder and the courthouse smelled like floor polish and old paper, the kind of smell that stays in your throat long after you leave. I sat at the respondent's table with my hands folded, one thin folder in front of me, and nothing else. No lawyer, no family, no one in the gallery whispering support or squeezing my shoulder before the hearing started. Just me. Across the aisle, my sister Vanessa arrived like she was walking into a charity gala she'd organized herself. Cream blazer, pearl earrings, that specific shade of lipstick she wore when she wanted to look trustworthy. Behind her, a lawyer in a charcoal suit carried a thick accordion folder that seemed to grow heavier with importance every time he shifted it, where my aunt and uncle sat in the front row behind Vanessa, dressed like they were attending a baptism, not a courtroom battle over everything I owned. Vanessa didn't look at me right away. She took her time settling into her seat, smoothing her skirt, adjusting her bracelet. Then, slowly, deliberately, she turned her head and looked at me sitting there alone. And she laughed. Not loud, not theatrical, just a quiet, breathy sound that carried across the space between us like smoke. Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, more like satisfaction. Like she'd predicted this exact image and was pleased to see it confirmed. The laugh wasn't for anyone else, it was for me. I didn't look away, I didn't react. I sat there and let her have her moment, because I'd learned a long time ago that Vanessa fed on reaction. Giving her nothing was the only defense I had left. The clerk's voice cut through the room. Case number 47C, Vanessa Trask, petitioner, versus Morgan Trask, respondent. The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver hair pulled into a low bun and reading glasses perched on her nose, looked up from her notes. Judge Calloway. I'd researched her. She was known for being efficient, no nonsense, and impossible to charm. Vanessa's lawyer stood first, smooth and practiced. Your Honor, Gregory Finch for the petitioner. We're here today seeking immediate transfer of assets and protective control over the respondent's property, accounts, and personal effects due to a pattern of financial irresponsibility and concealment. The word concealment landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. Judge Calloway's gaze moved to me. Ms. Trask, do you have representation? I'm representing myself today, Your Honor, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. Vanessa's smile widened just a fraction. She'd been counting on that. Gregory Finch stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the courtroom floor. Your Honor, this petition has been necessitated by Ms. Morgan Trask's ongoing instability. My client has repeatedly attempted to assist her sister, both financially and emotionally, only to be met with secrecy and evasion. I felt the eyes in the gallery shift to me. Judging. Deciding. Finch continued, his voice warm and reasonable. We are not here to punish Ms. Trask. We are here to protect her from herself and to ensure family assets are preserved responsibly. Judge Calloway tapped her pen once. What specifically are you requesting, Mr. Finch? Everything, Your Honor. He said it like it was reasonable, like it was kind. All personal property, financial accounts, real estate interests, and any future proceeds. My client is prepared to assume full responsibility. I watched Vanessa. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, chin slightly raised. She looked like someone performing the role of concerned sister for an audience that was already applauding. Judge Calloway's gaze returned to me. Ms. Trask, do you understand what's being requested? Yes, Your Honor, I replied. And your response? I reached for my folder and pulled out a single envelope. Not thick, not dramatic, just one sealed page. I stood and walked it to the clerk, my footsteps loud in the quiet room. Your Honor, I have one request before you consider their motion. I'd like to add this document to the record. Finch let out a small, dismissive sound, half laugh, half scoff. Your Honor, we've submitted extensive documentation. One page isn't going to... Judge Calloway raised a hand. I'll decide what's relevant, Mr. Finch. She nodded to the bailiff. Open it and read what's necessary for the record. The bailiff, a man in his 50s with tired eyes and calloused hands, broke the seal carefully. He unfolded the page, scanned it, and something shifted in his expression. Not surprise. Recognition. He looked up at the judge. Your Honor, this appears to be a property registry notice. Finch's confidence faltered for just a second. Your Honor, we already submitted property documentation. Judge Calloway ignored him. Continue, bailiff. The bailiff cleared his throat. Yes, it pertains to the residential property listed as Item 3 in the petitioner's inventory. The property located at... He stopped himself and glanced at the judge. You may omit the full address, Judge Calloway said. The property in Millbrook listed in the petitioner's filing as family property to be transferred. He paused, eyes moving across the page. Then he looked up, not at the judge this time. At Vanessa. Your Honor, according to this registry extract, the petitioner does not have ownership interest in this property. The courtroom went still in a way that felt physical. Vanessa's smile didn't move, but her eyes hardened. She leaned toward her lawyer and whispered something urgent and low. Judge Calloway leaned forward slightly. Mr. Finch, your inventory list includes a property your client doesn't own? Finch recovered quickly, his voice smooth. Your Honor, there may be a recording error. The property has been in the family for years. My client has managed it, maintained it, and... Who owns it? Judge Calloway asked, cutting through the performance. The bailiff looked down at my document again. According to the registry, it's owned by Morgan Trask. Sole ownership, recorded 8 years ago. I didn't smile. I didn't react. I sat there and let the words do what words in courtrooms are supposed to do. Tell the truth. Finch tried to pivot. Your Honor, that may be a technical detail, but the property was purchased with family funds and... Judge Calloway raised a hand. Stop. We're not arguing provenance yet. I want to know why your petition lists an asset your client doesn't own and requests immediate transfer of it. Vanessa finally spoke, seeing her voice soft and careful. Your Honor, my sister has been difficult to reach. We were concerned she might liquidate or hide assets. We wanted to secure everything until we could sort out what actually belongs where. It was a good answer. Calm, reasonable, painted me as the problem. Judge Calloway didn't react. She turned to the bailiff. What else is on that registry notice? The bailiff scanned further. There's a notation here, Your Honor. It states that a restriction was filed on this property 6 weeks ago. A legal hold preventing sale or transfer. Judge Calloway's pen stopped moving. Who filed the restriction? The bailiff's eyes flicked to Vanessa, then back to the page. Vanessa Trask. The air in the room changed. Even the court reporter's fingers slowed on the keys. Judge Calloway's gaze locked onto Vanessa. Ms. Vanessa Trask, you filed a restriction on property you don't own. Vanessa's composure cracked just slightly at the edges. Your Honor, I was protecting it. Morgan has been unpredictable. I couldn't risk. That's not an answer to my question, Judge Calloway said, her voice quiet and sharp. Did you file a legal restriction on your sister's property without her consent? Finch stood. Your Honor, my client acted in good faith to preserve family. Sit down, Mr. Finch. He sat. Judge Calloway looked at me. Mrs. Trask, did you authorize your sister to file a restriction on your property? No, Your Honor, I said. The bailiff shifted, still holding my document. Your Honor, there's more here. The notice includes a reference number tied to the restriction filing. It also lists the account used to initiate it. Judge Calloway nodded once. Read it. The bailiff's voice flattened into official neutrality. The restriction was filed through an online county portal using an account registered to Trask Property Management, LLC. Vanessa's company, her business entity, her digital fingerprints all over a filing that locked down something I owned. Judge Calloway turned to Vanessa, and for the first time, her expression wasn't neutral. It was pointed. Ms. Trask, You used your company account to restrict your sister's property, and now you're asking this court to transfer it to you? Vanessa's jaw tightened. It was a precaution. A precaution, Judge Calloway repeated, as if tasting the word and finding it sour. She looked at Finch. Counsel, I'm going to need an explanation that doesn't involve the word precaution. Finch stood again, slower this time. Your Honor, the family has been concerned about Ms. Morgan Trask's mental state and her ability to manage assets responsibly. My client took steps to ensure nothing was lost or mismanaged. By locking her out of her own property, Judge Calloway said. By preserving it, Finch countered. Judge Calloway set her pen down. That's not preservation, Mr. Finch. That's control without consent. She turned to the bailiff. Return to the petitioner's inventory list. Read item 4. The bailiff picked up the accordion folder Finch had brought and pulled out the inventory sheet. His eyes moved down the page and then stopped. His face tightened in a way that made my stomach clench. Your Honor, he said slowly, item 4 is listed as a safe deposit box held at Riverbend Credit Union. Box number? He glanced at the judge for permission. So you may omit the number, she said. The notation says, contents to be secured immediately upon transfer. Judge Calloway's gaze sharpened. Ms. Morgan Trask, do you have a safe deposit box at Riverbend Credit Union? Yes, Your Honor, I said. And did you authorize access to it? No, Your Honor. Finch stood again, voice urgent now. Your Honor, my client has not accessed anything. This is simply an inventory of assets that need to be protected. Judge Calloway's eyes didn't leave Vanessa. Ms. Vanessa Trask, have you accessed your sister's safe deposit box? Vanessa's throat moved. I have access. That wasn't the question, Judge Calloway said. Have you accessed it? Vanessa hesitated just long enough for the room to notice. I went to the bank to inquire about securing it, yes. Judge Calloway turned to me. Ms. Trask, how would your sister have access to your safe deposit box? I kept my voice even. She wouldn't, not without my written authorization or a court order. Judge Calloway looked back at Vanessa. Explain. Vanessa's confidence was cracking now, hairline fractures spreading. I brought documentation. The bank allowed me to verify contents. What documentation? Judge Calloway asked. Vanessa glanced at her lawyer. Finch pulled a folder from his stack and handed it to the clerk. The clerk passed it to the bailiff, who opened it and scanned the top page. The bailiff's expression darkened. Your Honor, this appears to be a notarized authorization form granting Vanessa Trask access to the safe deposit box. Judge Calloway took the document and read it. Then she looked at me. Ms. Trask, is this your signature? I didn't even need to see it. No. Your Honor? Judge Calloway's jaw tightened. She held up the document. Bailiff, please compare this signature to the signature on Ms. Morgan Trask's response filing. The bailiff placed the two documents side by side. He didn't need long. Your Honor, they don't match. The courtroom felt like a held breath. Judge Calloway's voice dropped into a tone I hadn't heard yet. Cold. Precise. Mr. Finch, your client submitted a notarized authorization with a forged signature to access her sister's safe deposit box. Finch's face went pale. Your Honor, we had no knowledge. Stop talking, Judge Calloway said. She looked at Vanessa. Ms. Trask, where did you obtain this authorization? Vanessa's hands trembled slightly in her lap. It was prepared by my office. I thought... Who notarized it? Judge Calloway asked. The bailiff checked the document. The notary commission number belongs to a Claire Bennington. Judge Calloway turned to the clerk. Run that name. The clerk typed quickly, then looked up. Your Honor, Claire Bennington is a licensed notary, public employed by Trask Property Management, LLC. Vanessa's company. Again. Judge Calloway set the document down like it might explode. Ms. Vanessa Trask, You used an employee from your own company to notarize a document giving yourself access to your sister's bank box using a signature that is not hers? Vanessa's voice came out thin. I was trying to protect. You were trying to access, Judge Calloway interrupted. There's a difference. She turned to the bailiff. Did the bank allow access? The bailiff looked at me, then at the judge. Your Honor, I don't have that information in the current record. I reached into my folder and pulled out a second envelope. I'd been holding it, waiting for this exact moment. I stood and walked it to the clerk without a word. Judge Calloway took it and opened it herself this time. She read silently, her expression tightening with each line. Then she looked up at Vanessa, and there was no neutrality left in her gaze. Mr. Finch, she said quietly, your client attempted access 3 days ago. The bank denied it and flagged the authorization as fraudulent. They initiated an internal fraud hold and preserved security footage. Finch's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Judge Calloway continued, her voice like gravel. The bank's incident report states that your client appeared with the forged authorization and insisted on immediate access. When denied, she became, quote, verbally aggressive and threatened legal action. Vanessa's face went white. Judge Calloway set the report down. Bailiff, read the rest of the petitioner's inventory. I want to know what else is on that list. The bailiff returned to the inventory sheet, his voice careful now. Item 5. Financial account at Riverbend Credit Union, checking account ending in 8142. Ownership? Judge Calloway asked. The bailiff glanced at me. Listed as joint. Judge Calloway looked at me. Ms. Trask, do you have a joint account with your sister? No, Your Honor, I said. I closed any joint accounts we had over 4 years ago. Judge Calloway turned to Finch. Counsel? Finch stood, face flushed now. Your Honor, the account may have been reactivated for estate planning purposes. By whom? Judge Calloway asked. Finch didn't answer. Judge Calloway's gaze returned to the bailiff. Continue. The bailiff read, Item 6. Vehicle title, 2019 Honda Accord, VIN number. He trailed off, then looked up. Your Honor, this vehicle is titled solely to Morgan Trask. Judge Calloway leaned back in her chair, arms folded. Mr. Finch, your client's petition lists multiple assets she doesn't own, filed a restriction on property without authority, forged a bank authorization, and attempted to access a safe deposit box under false pretenses. Would you like to explain to me why I shouldn't refer this to the district attorney right now? Finch opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Your Honor, my client acted out of concern for her sister's welfare. Judge Calloway raised a hand. I've heard enough concern to last a lifetime, Mr. Finch. What I haven't heard is a single legal basis for any of this. Vanessa finally broke. She stood up, voice sharp and defensive. She's been hiding things. She won't talk to the family. She disappeared for months and wouldn't tell anyone where she was or what she was doing. Someone had to... Sit down, Judge Calloway said. Vanessa sat. Judge Calloway's gaze moved to me, and for the first time, her expression softened by a fraction. Ms. Trask, do you have any additional documentation? Yes, Your Honor. I pulled out one more envelope. This one was thicker. I handed it to the clerk. Judge Calloway opened it and pulled out a stack of printed pages. Bank statements, correspondence, emails, timestamps. All of it organized, all of it clean, all of it telling the same story Vanessa didn't want told. Judge Calloway read in silence for what felt like an hour, but was probably 2 minutes. Then she looked at Vanessa with something close to disgust. Ms. Vanessa Trask, she said slowly, these records show that you accessed your sister's email account without authorization, contacted her employer to inquire about her finances, and sent multiple letters to her landlord requesting access to her apartment. Vanessa's face crumbled. I was worried. You were intrusive, Judge Calloway corrected. She flipped another page. You also contacted her bank 4 times in the past 6 weeks, requesting account information, and when denied, You filed complaints claiming fraud. The bailiff cleared his throat. Your Honor, if I may, there's one more item on the inventory list. Item 7. Judge Calloway nodded. Read it. The bailiff's voice dropped. Item 7. Personal estate documents, original will and trust amendment, signed by Irene Trask, to be retrieved from safe deposit box upon access. The room went silent. Judge Calloway's pen stopped moving. She looked at Vanessa with an expression that could cut glass. You were trying to access your mother's will? Vanessa's hands shook. It's a family document. It's a legal document, Judge Calloway said, and your sister is the executor, not you. I kept my voice steady. Your Honor, my mother passed away 14 months ago. She named me executor in her will and left specific instructions. Vanessa contested it. The probate case is still open. Judge Calloway's eyes narrowed. And you believe your sister was attempting to access the original will to alter or suppress it? Yes, Your Honor, I said. See, that's why I moved it from the safe deposit box 6 months ago and placed it with the probate court under seal. Vanessa's head snapped toward me, eyes wide with shock and fury. Judge Calloway leaned forward. You moved it 6 months ago? Yes, Your Honor. When I discovered someone had inquired about my box without my authorization, I transferred all sensitive documents to the court's custody. I have the receipt and chain of custody documentation. I pulled it from my folder. The clerk took it. Judge Calloway examined it, then looked at Vanessa. So your client, she said to Finch, attempted to access a safe deposit box that no longer contained what she was looking for, because Ms. Morgan Trask anticipated this exact scenario. Finch said nothing. Judge Calloway set the papers down and removed her glasses. I'm denying the petition in full. I'm issuing a protective order prohibiting Ms. Vanessa Trask from contacting her sister directly or indirectly. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of forgery, fraud, and attempted theft. And I'm ordering the immediate preservation of all records from Trask Property Management, including communications, notary logs, and access records. Vanessa's lawyer finally found his voice. Your Honor, my client has no criminal intent. Judge Calloway put her glasses back on. Mr. Finch, your client used her company infrastructure to forge documents, restrict property, and attempt to access sealed estate materials. That's not intent, that's execution. She turned to the court officer. Officer, please secure Ms. Vanessa Trask's phone for evidence preservation pending the district attorney's review. Vanessa stood up so fast her chair scraped. You can't. Sit down, Judge Calloway said, and this time her voice carried the full weight of the bench. Vanessa sat. The court officer approached. Vanessa's hands shook as she pulled her phone from her purse and handed it over. The officer placed it in an evidence bag, sealed it, and labeled it with clinical efficiency. Judge Calloway looked at me. Ms. Trask, do you have the original will in your possession? No, Your Honor, it's with the probate court under seal. I can provide the case number and contact information for the probate clerk. Judge Calloway nodded. Do that. This court will coordinate with probate to ensure the document remains protected. She turned back to Vanessa. Ms. Vanessa Trask, why, you came into this courtroom asking to take everything your sister owns. Instead, you've demonstrated a pattern of interference, forgery, and attempted manipulation of estate documents. I'm not just denying your petition. I'm sanctioning you personally for abuse of process. You will pay your sister's filing fees, and you will submit to a deposition under oath regarding every action you've taken related to her property and your mother's estate. Vanessa's face was pale, her hands clenched in her lap. Judge Calloway's gaze swept the courtroom. If any family member attempts to contact Ms. Morgan Trask on behalf of Ms. Vanessa Trask, they will be held in contempt. This order is effective immediately. She signed something with a decisive stroke and handed it to the clerk. We're adjourned. The gavel came down. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Vanessa stood, her face tight with rage and humiliation. She turned to me, and in a voice only I could hear, she whispered, "You're going to regret this." I looked at her calmly. I don't think so. She started to say something else, but the court officer stepped closer, and she thought better of it. She walked out of the courtroom, her lawyer trailing behind her, his accordion folder suddenly looking like a liability instead of a weapon. My aunt and uncle sat frozen in the front row, neither of them looking at me. They filed out in silence. I stayed in my seat until the room emptied. Then I walked to the clerk's window and scheduled the follow-up hearing with the same calm efficiency I'd used to prepare everything else. Outside, the air felt sharp and clean. My phone buzzed. An email from the probate clerk confirming the will was still under seal. Another from the bank confirming the fraud hold was active and the footage preserved. I drove home in silence, the folder on the passenger seat now lighter than it had been that morning. When I walked through my apartment door, I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I made tea, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my laptop. I had 3 more filings to prepare, 2 more preservation requests to submit, and a timeline to document before the district attorney's office contacted me. Because Vanessa thought she could take everything by showing up with a thick folder and a lawyer's smooth voice. She thought being loud and confident and family would be enough. But I'd learned something she never had. The quietest person in the room isn't always the weakest. Or sometimes they're just the one who did their homework. Over the next month, consequences arrived without fanfare. The district attorney opened a case. Trask Property Management was served with subpoenas. The notary who'd signed the forged authorization was placed on administrative leave pending review. The bank's security department filed its own incident report. Vanessa's lawyer stopped sending threatening letters and started sending careful, cautious requests for settlement discussions. Vanessa herself didn't contact me. She couldn't. My aunt called once. 1 voicemail, 3 sentences, full of vague sorrow and no accountability. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my lawyer, the one I hired after the hearing, now that I could afford one, and let her handle it. At the probate hearing 2 weeks later, the judge reviewed my mother's will under proper procedure. The clause Vanessa had been so desperate to find did exist, but it didn't give her more, it gave her less. My mother had written a specific provision. Any beneficiary who attempts to obtain, alter, conceal, or improperly control estate documents forfeits their distribution and receives only a nominal amount. The probate judge didn't need a dramatic explanation. The court record from Judge Calloway's hearing, the bank's incident report, the forged authorization, the restriction filings. Together, they painted a clear picture. Vanessa's inheritance was reduced to $1,000. The rest went to me, as executor, to distribute according to the will's remaining terms. When Vanessa tried to appeal, her new lawyer quietly advised her that appealing would require her to testify under oath about everything she'd done. She withdrew the appeal 3 days later. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply executed the will, distributed the assets properly, closed the estate, and filed the final accounting with the court. 6 months after the hearing, I got a text from an unknown number. Just 1 line. "You destroyed everything." I stared at it for a moment. Then I blocked the number and deleted the message. Because I hadn't destroyed anything. Vanessa had walked into that courtroom planning to erase me from my own life, and the only thing I'd done was make sure the record could speak for itself. I didn't win because I was louder or richer or better connected. I won because I understood something Vanessa never had. In a courtroom, the person with the thickest folder isn't always the person with the truth. Sometimes the truth fits on a single page, and when you know how to prepare, when you document every inquiry and every attempt and every lie, you don't need to be loud. You just need to be right. A year later, I moved to a new city for a job I'd been quietly pursuing while everything else was falling apart. I changed my number. I didn't tell my aunt or uncle or any of the family members who'd sat silently in that courtroom while Vanessa tried to take everything. I started over, clean and quiet, in a place where nobody knew my name or my history or what I'd survived. And on the anniversary of that hearing, I sat in my new apartment with a cup of tea and thought about the moment the bailiff opened my folder, and everything Vanessa had built started to collapse. She'd laughed when she saw me sitting alone, but she'd left in silence, her phone in an evidence bag, and her future in the hands of a district attorney who didn't care how polished she looked. And that, I realized, was its own kind of justice. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that just needs to be true. If you'd been in my position, would you have confronted Vanessa the moment you discovered the restriction? Or would you have stayed quiet and built your case until you had everything documented? Let me know in the comments.